Welcome to Beyond IRCAD, everyone, and in this episode, Professor Nicolas Demartines explains why talking to others and having someone to look up to can make hard situations easier. He talks about the genuine pride he feels when younger surgeons learn new skills from him, and also find out how having a good laugh can really help when things get tough. Tune in as we talk about how laughter, being focused, and getting better at your job all connect.
Beyond IRCAD. Surgical Journeys.
Here we go again, guys. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Beyond IRCAD, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives and careers of successful surgeons from all over the world. With a very prestigious guest with us in the studio today, Professor Nicolas Demartines. Welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you. Professor Demartines, you're the director of the Vaudois University Hospital, which is affiliated with the Lausanne University. It's one of the largest university hospitals in Europe, and you're also very much involved with passing on to the next generation of surgeons. So today we're going to be talking about your love story with surgery. Can I start by asking you how it all started for you? When did you become interested in surgery?
Well, initially as a student, I wanted to become veterinary.
Okay.
And but relatively quickly, I mean, before I was a student, when I was a child, I wanted to become a veterinary. And relatively fast, I realized that it was medicine who was interesting me more. Of course, I love animals, but I love also people. And so I pretty quickly decided it will be surgery.
Okay.
Surgery, why? Because I had the feeling that we can directly help the people. And the interesting in that I believed at the beginning of my career in general surgery, where you do everything, where you have a totipotent surgeon doing from head to feet and everything which is in between. And my entire career, I realized it was change. And today, I'm a very big defender of the multidisciplinarity and the specialization.
Yes.
And the time where you have one single surgeon, for example, or one single doctor who has the truth and can cure a patient, especially cancer patient, it's over. Today, it's a multidisciplinary work with various possibility, therapeutic possibility, diagnostic possibility. The one does not exclude the other.
Yeah.
And today, cancer became a chronic disease because you can cure the patient, but after a few years, you have eventually some recurrences, and then you can treat them again. And we have today very, very long survival with very, very good quality of life.
And so as an experienced surgeon, how do you feel in the operating room? Is it more of a relaxed and in control feeling, or do you feel pressure? How do you feel?
Actually, I feel pretty cool in the operating room because I have a good team around me.
Yes.
And of course, when you do something very special or very complex, you have some tension in you. But the tension is not during the 6-hour operation always the same. It's maybe more at the beginning. And then you have an evolution, you are under control, you have a good team around you, so you can become more relaxed. And actually, I must say, the feeling, the atmosphere in the operating room is pretty cool.
And do you have a specific set of rules or specific things, like almost rituals that you follow before an operation to feel completely ready?
I think the operation is like a flight. You need to plan it before.
Yeah.
And for my specialty, which is liver and pancreas, you have to study very carefully the imaging you have before. And then in your mind, you should have a strategy. And you should also always have a plan B. And so when you have that, you can, depending on the situation you will find, you say, okay, I find this situation, we go in this direction. But you have to know it before. Sometimes you need to make some improvisation, but usually it's better to have a clear view on what are the options.
Yeah.
And to take the quote Eugene Kranz, who was the flight director of Apollo 13, who had the accident, he said, failure is not an option.
Yes.
And in surgery, failure is not an option.
So what happens when you have difficult cases and you get stuck? Do you always find some way to work things out?
Sometimes if you are stuck, as you said, I think it's always good to discuss.
Yeah.
Number one, you discuss with the team. Number two, I usually discuss with a very good friend of mine who is the radiologist, and sometimes he come in the operating room and we look together inside the operating field with ultrasound. We make correlation with the MRI imaging, and then we decide. So I have to take the responsibility, but the fact to have an exchange is good.
Yes.
And when I became the chief years ago, I used to say to my senior surgeon, if you have a very big difficulty, call someone. It does not need to be me, but call a friend.
Yeah.
You have. That's a good advice that you can give. Call a friend. And I had this morning a conversation with one of the best HPB surgeon in Europe, and he had a very difficult case recently, and he called two friends, one here in the IRCAD and the other one in another country, to exchange about what are the way to move forward. And I think it's very, very safe for the patient to have the humility to say, okay, maybe I can need an advice, because you are emotionally involved. Mm-hmm. And suddenly to have somebody else who say, hey guy, come on, this is not so dramatic as you thought, or give you advice. It's an exchange. Yeah. It's not somebody telling, do that. It's really an exchange. And at the end, of course, it's not like, again, in a flight, the captain take the responsibility and the surgeon has to take the responsibility during the procedure.
So is it important to be able to put your ego aside?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We say that the surgeon have huge ego. I will not say the opposite, but actually, if you make complex surgery, that's a school of humility.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think instinct also plays a role as experience builds up over the years?
That's an interesting question. The instinct, for me, does not exist.
Okay.
It is experience.
Okay.
It is experience. You make analogy with other situation, and another good word who was said by a famous surgeon, he say, oh, if you are stuck, stop and think. Mm-hmm. And then you can move forward. You always have the possibility to make a small break. Say, well, we will interrupt now and we will think about it. So you can put sponge inside. You say, I have to look at the picture again. So the imaging, or you rinse, or you make an ultrasound, or you make something. But to cool down a hot situation. But I must say, these cases where you have to cool down a hot situation, it's maybe 5 to 10% of the cases, because usually we should have really knowledge and what we will be in front of.
Okay. And aside from all the technical aspects of surgery, another important aspect is the human aspect. Because the patient doesn't necessarily understand what's going on, what's going to happen. How do you manage to build that trust with the patient?
Well, that human relationship, that's what you mentioned. Number one, you have to listen to the patient. You have to feel his fear, because the patient are afraid. You see all the day patient with a big cancer, and for them that's a single situation. So you have to take that into consideration. And in case you have a patient who seems a little bit aggressive, it's not against you. Don't take that personal. Even if the anger is against you, it's against his disease.
Of course.
And if you understand that, then you can, with benevolence, with listening, with trying to demonstrate a little bit how are the possibilities, to give hope,
yes,
without lying, but to give hope, and then we can build a relationship. And I must say, in some situation it's rare, but if you have the feeling you cannot build a trust relationship, you should really ask yourself if you have to operate on this patient.
Yeah, it makes sense. Another aspect of your career as a surgeon is teaching and passing on to the new generation. You're the director at the Vaudois University Hospital, which is affiliated with the University of Lausanne, where you also teach. And you've been teaching here at IRCAD for a very long time now. I'd like to know how you first became involved in teaching and how you first established a connection with Professor Maresco here at IRCAD. How did that happen?
We established with Professor Maresco a relationship 30 years ago.
Wow.
It was with one of the first projects, which was the THESUS project, which was the idea to have telemedicine to make teaching and to make diagnosis or help to the diagnosis at a distance. Okay. It was very complicated by them. Today you make a FaceTime, you make a Zoom or whatever with your iPhone. Yeah. But back then we had huge screen, we had huge devices and a lot of cable, and it was very exciting. And then when the IRCAD started with the course, I was relatively quickly invited to teach. And one day, I was a younger surgeon back then, and one day there were a chair missing. And then Professor Maresco asked me to be the chair of the session. And then he realized, number one, I like to do that, and number two, I have the generosity not to put myself in the front, even if I'm in the front when I'm chairing a session, but to put the value on the people who are speaking or on the people who are listening. And I really love to do that. And that's exactly the same in the operating room. Because when you are good at making an operation, what is the next best step you can do? It's to give this knowledge to a younger surgeon.
Of course.
And my pleasure as a surgeon at a certain point is to see that the younger surgeons are doing the operation almost better as me or better as me. And it's not an issue for me. Actually, I'm proud of it because I help them to grow up, but at a certain point you can back up. It's not always possible. Sometimes you have to jump in. Sometimes your experience, what you called before instinct, has to say, well, maybe this step I will do it myself. I show you how to do. Or for example, when a younger surgeon were making a kind of special move in an operation and he did not well, I say, just a second. I took the instrument. I show how to do the move, but then I go back and I say, okay, now you do it. And then when I see he understood what I show him, that's a great pleasure.
Yeah, it must be. Do you sometimes see young surgeons and think, wow, this one is gifted, he's...
Yes. Yeah. You observe that. And, those people need to be supported, but sometimes you have to be cautious that they do not become cowboys.
Of course.
And because I think it's something very dangerous in surgery, people who are too self-confident bring to accident.
Of course,
so
yeah.
I think we have to cool them down. Yeah, I remember from what such a surgeon he did not listening what I was telling him by assisting in the operation, and suddenly it started to bleed. By good fortune, I saw exactly what was the problem. So I stepped back and I said just nothing. Then he became nervous. What should I do? What should I do? I say, yep. I don't know, because I was explaining you since half an hour what you should do. You did not listen. Now find a solution. No, I cannot. So I took over. I fixed the problem very shortly. The blood loss was not so big. So it was a small blood loss, but a small blood loss during a laparoscopic operation is immediately a problem.
Yeah.
So I fixed the problem and I gave him the instrument back and he finished the operation. But this guy is a smart guy. So he came to me, say, thank you. You give me a good lesson.
You'll probably remember this.
He will remember it. As I remember, because it's happened 1 or 2 times in my entire career. And I didn't want it to be nasty, but the guy deserves a small lesson of humility.
Of course, yeah.
But he got the point, because he became a very good surgeon. Now he's chief in a big hospital, and we still are good friends.
Oh, there you go. And do you, in this atmosphere of exchanging with other experts, do you still keep learning as well?
Oh, yes, every day. Every single moment in this meeting, we are making exchanges, and my role as a course director now, or chair of session, is to make the synthesis of what has been said, because when we are doing very challenging or high-level surgery, you may have various experts with various opinion, various strategies. And what is important for the audience, for the students, to have a synthesis between what has been done, or just to emphasize that the situation becomes so particular that it is very individual, based on individual cases, and we cannot say it's always that way or it's always so. No. We have to find a way to wake the awareness of the students So there are surgeons of the younger surgeon to adapt the strategy based on each case.
So you have to customize.
To customize, that's
Yes.
a good word.
And with the new technologies as well, I mean, everything is just progressing so fast these days. You have to stay up to date, haven't you?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the new technology is a support. I remember years ago there was big news in the newspaper, even at the television. The robot killed a patient. And no, I'm sorry, that's the surgeon. It was an accident during the operation, and today the robot is still run by a surgeon.
Yeah.
And the surgeon make the mistake, not the robot.
So what do you think of that when people try to blame technology? Is it because it happens sometimes,
Yes,
people do that?
The point is blaming technology is stupid because or is a misinformation or not enough information. The technology is mastered by the surgeon.
Yes.
Like the airplane is mastered by the captain of a flight. That's one another similarity, and we have to deal with this technology. And for doing that, you need to know this technology, and that's exactly what the IRCAD is good at, is to bring knowledge about the various technology, because all the specialists are here around at the IRCAD.
You've travelled a lot for your profession. I think you've worked in the UK and the US as well, in France and Switzerland, obviously. Do you think this international experience has also helped you acquire skills, and that it's important to see what's going on elsewhere?
So it's very important to see what is done elsewhere, but before doing that, you should already know what you are doing home. Because you are some people very young who are going to traveling, that's very interesting, but they have no idea what's done home.
Yes.
So it makes some difficulties, and it's good if you know what you are doing home, and then you go somewhere else to learn something new and to exchange. And you mentioned before that if I'm learning here, despite my high age at the IRCAD, I'm learning every day because we bring tricks. And I remember when I came X years ago, I brought every time a new tricks home, an improvement.
Yeah.
It was shown here, and I've seen that the other experts are doing the same. So it's an exchange in good way to deal with the benefit of the patient, because we are speaking a lot of technology, we are speaking of teaching, but finally the final goal is to help the patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And does this atmosphere of exchange also help to create friendships, for example?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? This friendship that you can achieve in traveling, like here, I have really a lot of good friends. It is good because the younger doctor working in your department, they have a benefit. I had last year 3 of my fellow who were abroad. One in the US, one in the UK, the other one in France. And it's easier because we know each other. I have a good guy. I think it's good if he came. Okay, they have to go through the official part, but it's help if we can exchange. The guy knows they can trust me. I will not send them a guy I don't want to invest in. And so that's a very good opportunity for the younger surgeon to see something else.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a bit about what goes on outside of the operating room as well. Is surgery always on your mind, or do you manage to actually switch off completely sometimes?
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending. If I had a big case who concerned me, I'm thinking a lot. I can give you an example. I had an amazing patient. She was pretty young with a pretty advanced pancreatic cancer. And she asked me to know every possible complication after the duodenopancreatectomy operation. All. She stayed 1.5 hours in my clinics. We had a big conversation. We established trust. The problem, she did all of these complications. It was terrible. She stayed 3 months in my department. Wow. And I visited her every day, inclusive Saturday and Sunday. So I was a little bit concerned about her because she was doing a complication, then we fixed that, and she did another one, and we fixed that, and so forth. But at the end, she has moved home. And the good news is 6 years later, she's still alive and without disease.
That's great.
Evident disease. So it means that effective, sometimes you can be very concerned about some patient.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Being confronted with, sickness, life and death, do you think this has affected your outlook on life in general? That life can be very fragile?
life is very fragile, and life is short. We are at a good place to know that, and of course you need empathy. You need to like the people you are helping. You need to like communication with the patient, with the family. And yes, I think it's very important to have this empathy, and it's give you maybe sometime you enjoy more some good moments with good friends like here at the IRCAD, for example.
Yes. And so what do you, when you want to move on and think about something else, how do you manage to maintain that balance between work on one hand and life on the other hand?
Okay, if there are no special cases we occupy my mind, I can switch off.
Yeah.
And literature, opera, traveling, making sport. You need to make a little sport to stay fit.
Yes.
Good wine, good food. This is okay.
Many things in life.
Many things in life. But I used to say something. It is absolutely boring when you have friend surgeons who speak only about surgery. They are terrible. And usually they are discussing about stuff very important, surgery, and to show how they good are. Actually, what I like with my surgeon friend is to speak from everything but surgery. Mm-hmm. And if I speak from surgery, usually is to say the complication or the problem I had, and we exchange on that, and I learn also for their own experience. But with my good friend surgeon, we speak from a lot of other stuff than surgery.
It's probably a good thing to speak about other things as well, in order to be even more efficient in the operating room as well.
You are right.
Yeah.
And then there is something else. If you have a complex case, and you had some difficulties and you are concerned about this case, it is good to have a referent person you can speak about. It don't need to be a surgeon. It can be your wife. It can be a good friend in the house.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to have this exchange. So I have several very good friends which are not surgeons. Mm-hmm. And when there was some issue, I could discuss that with them. So it's a good help to have a relationship and to put your big bag with sorrow with them.
Yeah. Do you think that over the years, this, because it can be emotionally difficult, as you were saying, when you have difficult cases, experience allows you over the years to deal with that in a better way? Was it a bit more complicated in your earlier years as a surgeon? Is that something that you acquired?
I could say the opposite.
Oh, yeah?
Actually, in the younger year, you do not always realize what is at stake.
Right.
And with the year, you become more empathic, maybe. Yeah. Not everybody, but you still keep the emotion all the time.
Okay.
And I think it's good because we are human beings. You have to control your emotion, but the moment you don't have any emotion, you should stop to do this job.
Do you think that some surgeons are doing this job for the wrong reasons? Success?
Unfortunately, yes, but I would say less and less. So it's true that I was very surprised. Long time ago, I was working with a guy. He had no clue when he had a complication. He didn't care. He had a complication without emotion. He forget that a patient was suffering because of a surgical complication. He did not care.
That's scary.
And it's not because he was hiding. He was really not taking care of that. And when I have complication, I'm sick. I hate that. And that's the moment where you need to speak to a friend.
Yeah.
Ideally, if you have to find solution for the complication with another surgeon or radiologist. I remember me years ago, I had a patient after a Whipple operation. He started to bleed and he had X examination. We never found out where he was bleeding. And then I said, it's very strange. A young guy, he was 52. And then I called a good friend in France, which was back then one of the most experienced surgeons in pancreatic surgery. And I explained him the situation. He said, years ago I had a similar situation. So he gave me the name of a medication that he gave to his patient successfully. I did the same and the patient stopped bleeding.
Wow, okay.
So but just what I wanted to say, to discuss that with a friend. Well, by this case, we found a solution, which is good.
So very important to reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out if you feel stuck, if you have a problem.
Yes.
What would you say is the most difficult thing about being a surgeon?
To keep your humility.
Yeah.
Because I see very good here with the expert that you have some expert who have a way, even if they are amazing good, but they still keep this humility, this way to listen to the other, to be interested on the other, to give their own experience, but in exchange with the other. And we have other people, not necessarily at IRCAD, but who are more, oh, I do so, and I am good. And this is a little a problem. And I think it's very important that we have this humility. And something also which is very important, maybe for me sometimes too much, is humor.
Yeah.
You should have humor, and in sad situation, you should be able to laugh. It's not always possible, but I think
difficult.
the humor can be useful.
Laughing in the face of
Also
danger.
with patient,
Yeah.
You cannot say that to every patient, but sometimes if you have some patient, you had a good relationship and they start to discuss about the possibility of death. Of course, you have to take them seriously. But I always had, not always, I very, very frequently had a good success when I tell them, I don't want you to die after the operation. It's very bad for my statistics. And then they started to laugh because I say that with love, and they understand that. But you cannot say that to everybody. But
of course, yeah.
You will be surprised, more patients than expected have suddenly this humor, and they are tense, and to have a crap from the surgeon.
Yeah, of course.
I remember once an older lady, we had some difficulties. We were to making a procedure I was very young, in local anesthesia, and it was not so easy. I do not remember why. And suddenly the old lady said, well, doctor, have you already done this operation? Because it seems it's not moving very forward. And my colleague was absolutely upset and wanted to say, mais madame, and said, no, madam, I'm sorry. It's not the first time I'm doing the operation, but a good friend of mine has the book where it is explained how to do that. And she started to laugh like an idiot, and the operation was done. And I go to her, and we had a good conversation. It was fun. But you cannot always say that.
Not with all patients.
I
think it's a great mentality, because to laugh in the face of danger.
Yeah.
The glass is half full, not half empty.
Yeah, and nobody asks who filled the glass only by half. Huh?
Yes, it's true. It's true. Can I ask you, who are your mentors as a surgeon or just as a man? Who are the people that inspire you?
Well, when I started my career, it is different in Switzerland than in France or the US. In France and US, when you start your career as a surgeon, you start as a surgeon. In Switzerland, I started to work 2 years in intensive care unit. And the chief of this intensive care unit was a kind of mentor for me. He was really a very good person, and he's over 80, of course, now, and we still have very good relationship. Then my next mentor was the chief surgeon at the University Hospital of Basel, Professor Felix Harder. He's now 85 years. We are very good friends. We still have a lot of contact, but unfriendly. And he's somebody who could laugh. And we could say crap, and it was okay. He was a little bit tense by operating because he was on time always, but he was a very good surgeon, and so he was a mentor. And then I have another mentor. I'm not saying that because I'm here at the IRCAD, but Jacques Maresco was a kind of mentor. Naturally, of course, he became now a very close friend, and we exchanged by our iPhone at least one every second day. Yeah. We exchange crap or stuff question. It's very funny and very good. But he was a very good mentor. Not surgical, because we had not, he was an endocrine surgeon and I'm an HPB, so we had few surgical stuff in common. But the philosophy of teaching, the philosophy of research, and the philosophy of supporting the younger people. And I remember a very nice story about Professor Maresco. We were with Didier Mutter, who is his number 2 here at the IRCAD, and we wrote a paper. We wanted to send it to Annals of Surgery. And Professor Maresco said, no way, it will not be accepted. And my chief said exactly the same. I was in Basel then. And then the paper was accepted, provided we make some changes. And then there was nothing. The paper was accepted in Annals of Surgery without changes.
Really?
Well, it was the standard letter. So I said that to my chief. Very good. And then he was speaking from something else. And Didier Mutter said that to Professor Maresco, who sent me a note by hand. He said, you wanted to send that to Annals. I didn't believe it. You were right. I was wrong. I'm very happy for you.
That's great. Great mentality.
Yeah.
Do you think this is why you appreciate humility? These
Yes.
Mentors of yours
Exactly.
were that way? Yeah.
So for this way of saying he loves you, it is a great mentor, because it's not easy to do that, and some people do not understand that if you help a younger guy, you support him, you have a open relationship, you are even greater than if you have him as a concurrent, which is ridiculous. And I observe exactly the same in my department. I give the example of the radiology. We have a very tough interventional radiology, and in a lot of departments, interventional radiology and surgeon, especially HPB surgeon, they are concurrent. Mm-hmm. No, we are working together. Yeah. Like Professor Jimenez here with the HPB team, it's a win-win situation. Yeah. And that's a way that, but then both grow up. And the people who are became chief and want only weak people around them, it's ridiculous, because everything is lowered. If you take strong personality around you, it's not easy every day. But everybody go up. Yeah. Everybody go up.
Yeah, there's a synergy.
Yeah, that's a synergy.
Yeah. What's the best single piece of advice you would give to our young listeners today?
Well, single piece, it's difficult, but be prepared. The best treatment of complication is prevention. Listen to the other. Of course, if somebody is always speaking, do you understand what is that, why you're doing, it's become boring. But if somebody say, well, but is it not an important vessel that you should not cut? You are less ridiculous if you try to demonstrate that what you are cutting is not the special vessel you should preserve, than to have to call help to repair the vessel. So I had this habit that when somebody told me something, hey, have you looked at this on the CT scan? Instead saying it's crap, you start again your thinking and you say, no, it's nothing. Oh, wow, maybe we should investigate. So good advice, listen to the others. Yeah. Of course, you always have nasty people, but in medicine, we are taking care of patients, and I hope that some people tell you, be cautious about that, we should listen to them.
Yeah. My final question here today, if you could be in this room with a young Nicolas Demartines, just starting out in medical school, what would you tell him?
Oh, go ahead and move and do surgery. But it will be a change. When I was the younger Demartines long time ago, I wanted to make general surgery, everything. And I did it. I was very fortunate to work in a hospital where it was still possible in the 80s, end of the 80s. But I would say him, you choose a specialty, develop your specialty, and work in collaboration with other people. Today, medicine is not the fact of a lonely doctor who know, but it's more a multidisciplinary work. So trust the other, exchange with the other, and be curious and open. The most stupid word in medicine is, we have always done that way. Yeah, and so what? Maybe it's a wrong way. I mean,
maybe there's a better way.
To read with candle, it's very, very exciting. But actually, if you want to read a book, it's maybe to have better to have electricity.
Of course.
The same philosophy in surgery.
It's great advice. Professor Nicolas Demartines, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your story and your experience. We wish you all the best for your future projects to come.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your good question.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Many, many thanks to our listeners worldwide. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and stay tuned for more content coming your way very soon. Take care and see you guys next time. Thank you.